Hello, I'm Amanda van der Vyver. I'm an educational psychologist for the Community Keepers Cape Town team. And today we're going to talk about self-care for educators. I want to start with two acknowledgements. And the first thing I want to acknowledge is that you are probably sitting with a lot of things already on your to-do list. The second thing, especially if you're listening to this in COVID-19 time, wherever you are mentally, physically, emotionally, I want you to take a moment and reflect on the following question. Maybe even pause this video if you can, write some ideas down on a piece of paper, maybe even share it with a colleague or a friend, whoever's watching this with you. Answer the following. Why are you here? Why are you listening to this talk? Maybe you chose this video out of some others because you knew you needed some self-care. Why is that? Why do you feel the need for self-care? Maybe you didn't have much of a choice. Somebody else decided that it is a good time to listen to some tips about self-care. Do you agree with that? Or don't you? Whatever your answer, what is the reason for that? I hope that this talk, and for those who feel that they need the self-care, can give you some tips on how to get that. And for those of you who are unsure whether self-care should be a priority, I hope this can be an invitation to consider it as one. In this talk, we will be talking about the myths about self-care. We will be talking about how to know and identify what you need. We'll be thinking about allowing yourself what you need, giving yourself permission to get what you need. We'll be talking about the 4 dimensions of self-care, and then I'll invite you to some tips of how to take care of yourself. Before we do that, I want to give you another chance to reflect on some questions. You'll have a handout, so maybe you can read through it and write some answers down. Again, discuss it if you want, but also maybe if you want to first just listen through it and come back to it later, that's also fine. What does self-care mean to you? How might taking better care of yourself benefit others? And note, I didn't say, will taking better care of yourself benefit others? I asked you, how would it do that? How do I get what I want or what I need without negatively impacting others? Do I tend more towards self-indulgence or to self-denial? In other words, what do I indulge in too much? Things like alcohol, like food, like TV pops up. What do I not deny myself too often? Maybe a good night's sleep, maybe some time with loved ones. What are my guilty pleasures and why do they make me feel guilty? What do I really find enjoyable and relaxing when nobody's watching, when nobody's at home with me? Which of my guilty pleasures should I not feel guilty about? Which ones could I allow in my life? Which of my guilty pleasures have the potential to become destructive or addictive? Think a bit about that and identify the ones that you should keep and the ones you shouldn't. How burnt out am I? I know burnt out is a really heavy and a weighted word or term, and I want you to think about that. Have you been feeling overwhelmed and really tired and burnt out the last couple of days? Has it been a week or weeks or maybe more? Is it time to talk to somebody? Address it. Am I worn out because I feel like I'm on all the time? Do I need more socializing or do I need less time with people and more time alone? Am I trying to keep too many balls in the air? Which ones can and should I put down? What can I do to take myself or to take care of myself in only a few minutes a day? Doesn't have to be a long weekend, can be a moment, and we'll talk about that later in this talk. How do I tend to get in my own way? What are my avoidance strategies when I'm under stress? And what are the triggers that provoke behavior that I would regret? How do I blow off steam And how does this blowing off steam harming or helping myself and those around me? What does my body need? And how is my body connected to my mind, to my thoughts, to my emotions? And whether you've had time now to reflect on some of these questions, and whether you're leaving it for later, I want you to take a moment now just to sit back, to relax, maybe close your eyes and take a deep breath. Slow breath in, slow breath out. Maybe another one, the deepest breath you've taken today. Slowly in, and maybe this time loudly out, nice loud sigh. If everybody's doing it, it won't be weird. And then take note. What are you feeling in your body? Where is there some tension? What are you clenching? Where are you clenching? Where are you feeling some discomfort? Maybe you have some stomach ache. Maybe you have a headache that's coming. What is happening? And where should you find some healing? Lastly, I want you to think about this. What is the one thing today, now, you could stop doing, or start doing, or change just a little bit that would improve your quality of life? Take some time, write that down. Let's talk about the myths of self-care. We think that self-care is selfish or self-indulgent. But actually, it is quite essential when taking care of others. Teachers are the tools of the trade, and therefore it is essential that you work in a way that will reduce your chances of burnout. And when burnout occurs, to have some strategies to heal again, to bounce back. We have to earn the right to practice self-care. We think that we first have to tick all the boxes, we have to meet all our goals before we can take a break, before we can reward ourselves with self-care. However, sometimes it takes self-care to give us the energy to meet those goals. We think that self-care means making a choice between yourself and others. But ironically, sometimes when we do not take care of ourselves, we get tired, we get frustrated. So what do? We lash out. We take energy from other people. So in our pursuit of being selfless or to sacrifice, we are maybe even being a bit more selfish. Again, self-care gives us energy, and that energy that we can give to others. We think self-care must be all or nothing, but it can be in the small moments. When you're driving from work and you notice the beautiful mountains, and you listen to a song that you really enjoy, maybe even dance to the song. We think that we have to have a perfect work-life balance, but sometimes there will be periods where we have to work harder. And if we're already experiencing a lot of stress, does it make sense to add some stress because we're not surviving it correctly? I heard a quote in the beginning of lockdown that said, you will be kind to yourself and not judge how you are coping by comparing it to how others are coping. And you will be kind to others and not judge how they are coping with how you are coping. We all do it differently. We all experience life differently. There's no way to survive correctly. We think that self-care takes up too much time. But you can think about where you can utilize small chunks of time. Take the 10 minutes to have a nice cup of coffee with a colleague if you need some socializing, or on your own in the sun outside if you need some alone time. We think that requires too much money or resources that you don't have. But like you notice, we're not talking about spa treatments and golf tournaments and vacations. We're talking about the small things that you can do. We think it takes a lot of discipline and a long list of rules, but I want to encourage you to trade your should list with a better to list. If we have to follow all the rules out there of how to live a healthy life and what to eat and how much apple cider vinegar to drink, you'll get crazy. But if you think, okay, it's better to have a glass of water before I have my next cup of coffee. that could really help, instead of saying, I should never have coffee again. Self-care is anything that soothes you. That is not true. Again, thinking about the things that might become destructive or even addictive. So what does realistic self-care look like? Doesn't cost a lot of money, doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't diminish your care you give to others. It is not about being selfish or avoiding your responsibilities, and it's not about ignoring the needs of your family, your community, or your learners in class. It is about being honest with yourself, about your capacity to handle your responsibilities, and to identify which aspects of your responsibilities and schedules you can control. You have to make choices about how you spend your time and energy in those moments that you can control, and communicate about those that are under the control of other people. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, I can't do this today. Can I do this tomorrow? Sometimes you might be able to. We have to recognize that we all have unique preferences, unique circumstances and challenges. So how do we know what we need? How do you identify that? There is no one-size-fits-all approach to self-care. So think about what is draining your energy. Maybe this is another spot where you can pause and reflect and write down some of the things that come up. Is your body tired? Maybe you've been standing, teaching the whole day, and you really need to stretch a bit. Do some yoga, do some stretches. Or maybe you were sitting in front of a computer, not really being used to it, and you really have to move again. Go for a walk, go for a run. Notice what your body needs. Maybe your mind feels a bit sluggish. And what may the reason be? You might be busy brainstorming and being creative in finding new ways to teach online, and the curriculum has changed and it was all input and output the whole day, and you feel overstimulated. Maybe you need a break. Maybe it's a good thing to go and watch 1 or 2 episodes of some silly season that you don't have to think a lot about. Or maybe you were teaching grade 1 learners to do something that is quite simple, or you had to do the same class 4 or 5 times and you don't feel stimulated at all. So don't go back home and do some more things that won't be stimulating. Take a book, read, watch a documentary so your brain can feel alive again. Maybe you feel emotionally spent. Sit and think why that could be. We all differ, and some of us are more extroverted and some of us are more introverted. So maybe you had a lot of extrovert time. You were being with learners and teachers and brainstorming and meetings and classes, and you actually need to go home and just have some time on your own again. That professional persona of being engaged with people the whole time might be taking energy, and you have to gain that energy back. Or maybe the opposite is true. Maybe you started teaching because you love working with children and interacting, but now you're teaching a laptop and you need that interaction. So make sure you get that energy back. Maybe you struggle with setting boundaries, and here specifically I'm talking about the boundaries of other people's stories and difficulties and traumas. It is okay to sometimes say, can I listen to you tomorrow when I have the capacity? Or to remember that even when you heard a story, that is not yours to solve. It's not your place to save that person. What do you have to do that you don't really have to do? Are there things that you can leave for tomorrow? Are there things that you can ask somebody else to do? Maybe you've been saying yes a lot, so everybody's asking you. It's okay to say no. It's okay to communicate that you don't have the capacity at this moment. And you don't have to have a reason. You can just say that you need to rest. So how do we allow ourselves what we need? Looking at this picture, I know it's a cliche to talk about the oxygen mask that you have to put on in the airplane, but cliches are cliches because they are true and because they work. We have to first look after ourselves. We have to first take some oxygen before we help those around us. Because, and I know you know this, but you have to remember this, if you don't, you will pass out and you can't help those around you in any way. So how do you do that? You must remind yourself that it's okay to stop. It is okay to say no. And if you find that challenging, you have to think about why. Why are you finding it challenging? Why are you saying yes the whole time? Why are you saying sorry that I couldn't? When we talk about self-care, we can look at 4 dimensions or aspects. Physical self-care, emotional self-care, psychological self-care, and lastly, spiritual self-care. So let's look at physical self-care. Physical self-care is about ensuring an overall healthy lifestyle. Like I said before, it's not about following all the rules, but just to really listen to your body. What does it need at the present moment? Sometimes it's quite easy. Sometimes it's just sitting up straight or stepping away from the screen or drinking a glass of water. The 25-5 rule goes like this. Our brains can't really concentrate in depth if it's busy with things like marking or setting up curriculums for more than 25 minutes. So here's the advice. For every 25 minutes of really focusing and concentrating and doing work, take a 5-minute break. I always say, take that 5 minutes, you go for a quick walk to the water cooler, get a glass of water, then you're also hydrating, you're getting some steps in, and you're probably also moving your body a bit after sitting for 25 minutes. Try it. I promise you, you'll feel the time goes by a bit more quickly and easier. You have to breathe. And we did a bit of that earlier, and I want to encourage you again. Take a very deep breath. I want to share 2 types of breathing with you. And the one which is really nice is to put your hand on your stomach and the other one on your chest or your heart. And when you breathe in, to feel how your stomach fills up with oxygen, with air. A deep breath in, slowly in. Count to 4. Keep your breath and then take a deep breath out. Do that a couple of times a day. I know that our body breathes automatically, but we forget to take proper, deep, relaxing breaths. The other thing that you can try is alternative nostril breathing. So you take your hand like this, you lower your 3 middle fingers, you close your nostril and you breathe in through one nostril. When you've taken a long breath in, you switch and you close the other nostril and breathe out. Then you breathe in again through this nostril, switch and out. Switch and out. This really takes some concentration. And it really makes you a mindful breather. It's also a tip for if you're struggling to fall asleep, to lie on your back and to try this. And even without your hand. And it might sound a bit silly, but try then imagining the air going in through the one nostril and exiting the other way. Breathing relaxes our body because it slows down our body. And when our body slows down, our mind slows down. And we feel more relaxed. Lastly, get your steps in and stretch or move. Maybe do a quick walk around the school, or like I said, go and fetch a glass of water and come back so that you can get your body moving. It's also important not to sacrifice on sleep and to practice good sleep hygiene. You can go and Google that, you'll find a lot of information, but 3 principles are quite important. Try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Our body works in cycles and rhythms, so when you do that, your body knows when it is time to fall asleep and to wake up again. Also try not to be on your screens, on your phones, on your laptops for 30 or 60 minutes before you go to sleep. That blue light will activate your brain, and if you're looking at some emails and you get something about tomorrow, it might trigger some stress. Lastly, it's also important to prepare by maybe switching off some lights so your body can know it's getting darker and it's getting time for bed. Or go for a hot shower or bath, because that will cool down your body temperature after, so you can fall asleep easier. Don't have too much caffeine late in the afternoon. Drink a nice cup of tea or hot milk if that helps you to fall asleep. Take time to rest and replenish. Even other days, that nap in the afternoon when you can might not be a bad thing. Also feed your brain. Your brain needs some nutrition to concentrate and to focus. So make sure that you make some healthy swaps and think about it. How long does it take to eat a sandwich? Don't skip on your lunch. Don't just rush about and say, I don't have time. Take the time. Take the 10 minutes and do it with a friend or a colleague if you need that socializing time, or take your cup of tea and your sandwich outside and have some quiet time and proper nutrition. Hydrate, drink some water. And I know we hear this quite often and we hear this everywhere, but it's really important. If you feel a bit sluggish, if you feel a headache coming on, drink a glass of water and make sure that your brain has the hydration it needs. Then, how do we look after our emotional self? Again, by setting clear boundaries on your time and your energy. By spending time with trusted colleagues and friends and surrounding yourself with the right people for you at certain times. You have to reflect on your feelings and your needs. Think about why you are feeling a certain way, and then you have to address it by communicating it. By saying, I'm feeling really overwhelmed because of all the new ways we have to do things, how we have to adapt the curriculum. Can I please take a moment just to go write down some questions and give it back to you? Have some moments of silence, or if you need music, some moments with music. We also have to look after our psychological well-being by cultivating self-awareness and to practice mindfulness. And there's a whole lot of information about mindfulness, but the core of that is to be conscious about what is going on. How are you feeling? Why are you feeling that way? What can you do to stop feeling that way? What are the things that work? And keep on doing them. What are the things that don't? Stop doing them. Remember that first question, or the bunch of first questions where we asked, what is the one thing you can do or stop doing or change that will improve your quality of life? Recognize what you can control and what not, and set and maintain boundaries, again, especially around those things that you can control. Stop over-explaining yourself to others and justifying why you are saying no. Stop saying sorry when you don't need to. It's okay to just say no, not to explain. It's okay to have nothing else to do. Don't have to just say no because you are busy. You can say, because I don't have capacity. Colleague and I have this saying where we say there is a difference between having time and being available. Yes, I'm free, but no, I'm not available. I don't have capacity to do this right now. Lastly, I want to invite you to some spiritual self-care, whatever this might look like to you. Identify what is meaningful to you. Go and look at your career, go and look at your job, go and identify the tasks that really bring you meaning and energy. Why did you start this job? And of course, there's very little people that's happy in their job 100% of the time. But research tells us that even if you find meaning in 20% of your working day, you will have less chance of burnout. Pray, meditate, spend time in nature, read or listen to something inspirational, whatever brings you another perspective on life. because it's not about ignoring the difficulties. It's not about ignoring and avoiding the stresses, but to get a new perspective. Somebody who was a mentor to me said to me when I started out in my job that maybe I have a skewed worldview, because I was feeling like every day I'm just bombarded with everything negative and all the sad stories and all the hurt, all the abuse. And I know for many of you, many of our educators, that also feels true. But it's skewed because there are people in the world that don't have those stories. And yes, I know the kids in front of you might be telling you this story, and that doesn't take it away from them. But if you step back and you gain a perspective and see the world in a different light, it might restore your faith in humanity, your God, or wherever you put your faith in. This quote from Brené Brown is really an important one to think about. Talk to yourself like you would to somebody you love. Somebody you care about tells you that they are worn out, they are tired, they are feeling overwhelmed. What would you say to them? Probably wouldn't say, snap out of it, or just carry on, just push through. Probably say, take a break. Here, sit down, have a cup of coffee. So why wouldn't you say that to yourself? I hope this session helped you to think about how you can take care of yourself. If anything came up, maybe sitting still and thinking about these things brought some emotions, some thoughts, some challenges, come and talk to us. Go to your CK office, choose somebody you trust, somebody you care about, and make sure that you take care of yourself first. Thank you.